Good morning, everyone. We are live from Council Chambers. Before we begin, I will go over the emergency response plan for the room. In an emergency, everyone must evacuate through the nearest safe exit. Those seated in the gallery will take direction from security, and Council will take direction from myself to evacuate the room. Once you've evacuated the room, please proceed to a stairwell, take the stairs to ground level, and evacuate the building through the doors marked emergency exit and go to the muster point. Do not take an elevator or walk through the city room. Anyone with limited mobility should identify themselves to security or myself during an evacuation, and please speak with security or myself if you require first aid. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and the Métis homeland, and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota, Sioux, as well as Métis and Inuit, now settlers from around the world. I will do a roll call of Council colleague, Councillor Wright.
Good morning.
Councillor Knack.
Good morning.
Councillor Prince Bay.
Good morning.
Councillor Stevenson.
Good morning.
Councillor Paquette.
Good morning.
Councillor Tang.
Good morning.
Councillor Hamilton.
Good morning.
Councillor Rutherford.
Good morning.
Councillor Salvador.
Good morning.
Councillor Carmel.
Good morning.
Councillor Rice.
Good morning.
And Councillor Jans.
Good morning.
Okay, everyone is here. Adoption of the agenda. Councillor Hamilton, you have the list?
Yes, I'm just going to pull up the actual motion here, or perhaps the clerks could display it. I'll start with, I'll move the adoption of the April 30th, thank you. I'll move the adoption of April 30th City Council's non-regular meeting agenda be adopted with the following change. The addition of item 6.1, bylaw 21068, 2025 property tax and supplementary property tax bylaw. The addition of item 6.2, bylaw 21069, the 2025 City of Edmonton Belvedere Community Revitalization Levy Rate and supplementary levy rate bylaw. Item 6.3, bylaw 21070, 2025 City of Edmonton, the Quarters Downtown Community Revitalization Levy Rate and supplementary levy rate bylaw. And 6.4, bylaw 21071, 2025 City of Edmonton Capital City Downtown Community Revitalization Levy Rate and supplementary levy rate bylaw.
Second.
Please vote.
Yes,
Madam
Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Paquette, and Councillor Hamilton.
Yes.
And Councillor Jans. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. So any protocol items? I see none. Select items for debate.
I'm trying to sign on.
Oh, Councillor Jans, go ahead.
Clerk, if I have a subsequent motion to 6.1, is it required to select the item, or can we just approve the items and then I can move the subsequent at a later point in the agenda?
If there's no questions, we can vote, proceed to vote on the bylaws, and then you can do a subsequent.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'd rather you exempt it, because then we can you tell, okay, I don't know what the subsequent is.
Sure, I'll exempt 6.1 then.
Yeah. Okay. All right, any other exemptions? Seeing none and nothing to vote on. Request to speak, none. Request for specific time on the agenda, none. Vote on bylaws not selected for debate. Councillor Knack.
Sure, I can do those. Yes, I'll move first reading of items 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Jans.
Is it carried?
Just give me one moment. We had all the votes there.
Okay, well, display the votes, please.
We will do our best.
No worries. Take your time. No rush today. There we go. It is, oh, my vote is coming, reappearing. Here you all vote again.
We have all the votes.
Okay, display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay,
Mayor Sohi, I'll move second reading of items 6.2, 6.3, 6.4.
Second.
okay, please vote.
Counselor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried.
Mayor Sohi, I'll move consideration of third reading for items 6.2, 6.3, 6.4.
Second.
Please vote.
Counselor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried.
And Mayor Sohi, I'll move third and final reading of Bylaw 21069, Bylaw 21070, and Bylaw 21071.
Second.
Okay, please vote for the final readings.
Counselor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. All right, we are back on to 6.1, Bylaw 21068, 2025 Property Tax and Supplementary Property Tax Bylaw. Councillor Jans, you exempted it. I don't know if there's any, are there any opening remarks or anything from admin?
We have no opening remarks.
Okay, Councillor Jans, you exempted this, can you,
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation.
okay, and you, it's first reading,
move
sorry,
first reading.
first reading. And
Second.
second by Councillor Rutherford, okay. Can you ask any questions on
Yeah,
what is it?
sure. I remain very concerned here about the perception of Edmontonians that no matter what color we use, what bolding and font changes we use on the property tax invoice, people just look at the bottom number and roll it together. I noticed the city of Calgary put forward an invoice to the government of Alberta for full property tax collection costs for the education property tax. My question to admin is, do we already receive some sort of a reimbursement for those costs? Are the costs paid for in their entirety, or are Edmontonians bearing the provincial property tax collection cost for the education portion?
We do not receive any reimbursement. We haven't quantified how much it costs to administer the education property tax, but I would say it's a very nominal amount.
In Calgary, however, it was approximately $10 million. Are you able to, or are you familiar with anything related to how Calgary, do they do it differently than we do?
I do not know how they came up with that number.
Okay. Thank you. Secondly, how long have we been collecting education property tax for the provincial government?
As long as Edmonton has been an incorporated city.
So, and is there are there other municipalities that don't do it this way, that do a separated bill?
No. Under the terms of the Municipal Government Act, every municipality in the province is required to administer the requisitions from requisitioning bodies, one of which is the provincial government.
But there's nothing that requires us that they couldn't be mailed separately or done separately or some other way, or the payable could be directly to 44 Capital instead of 1 Churchill Square?
No, actually, the way the legislation is written, we must include it in our property tax notice. We have had some internal debates about what constitutes a property tax notice, but the long and short of it is we are required by law to administer this along with our own tax requisition.
Have Alberta municipalities or any other body advocated to break this tie in the past? Has this been a point of concern for previous, my predecessors?
I believe Alberta municipalities have made it known that they would prefer the province to opt out of the education property tax space, but I don't know if they have ever formally requested separate notices or separate collection abilities.
So when I looked at the provincial chart, the provincial government is taking an additional $50 million from Edmontonians this budget. So I think from $525 to $575 million more. So the Edmontonians will be paying an additional $50 million more in education property taxes than last year. Is my math correct there?
I'm not sure about your math there. I do know that the provincial government increased their educational tax levy to all Albertans in the order of about 9%.
So Calgary, the average household in Edmonton pays about $90 more. The average house in Calgary is paying an additional $200 more. Why such a big disparity?
It actually has to do with the way assessment works at a provincial level, very similarly to the way assessment works at a municipal level. While the budget is set by the taxing authority, in the education tax case, the provincial government, the distribution to Alberta's property owners depends on their relative assessments and depends on the equalization process by which assessments are equalized to 1 to give everything essentially a common measurement. The other aspect of equalization to bear in mind is that it's equalized on the assessment roll of the year before the tax year. So this would be the equalization for the assessment roll of 2023.
Okay, so it's not like the city is withholding the $110 delta or difference between the Calgary amount and the Edmonton amount or anything like that? It's
No,
all-
this is the requisitions that the province sends to every municipality 4 times a year.
Okay, and the province would have been aware of these costs before. Oh, I'm out of time, sorry, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. I'm just wondering about the cost associated with collecting it. Yesterday at Audit Committee, there was a report about the tax system. If there's any upgrades that are needed to the tax system, would we be able to bill the province for it, or?
No, the province does not contribute to our property tax collection or administration system.
Okay, and there's nothing in the MGA that specifically says that, or just they've chosen not to assist the municipalities?
There is nothing in law that compels them to contribute to tax administration.
Is there anything in law that would limit them or limit us from asking them?
I would suggest no, but I would defer that question perhaps to legal services.
Mr. Gunter?
Cam Ashmore here, Councillor. There's nothing preventing it, but there's no legal obligation for the province to pay.
Okay. Because the tax system, I don't want to say the word antiquated, but it's getting old, right?
It's been a faithful system to us for a good number of decades. As you maybe remember, this capital cycle, the council chose to invest to begin a modernization process for it. We'll be returning, I'm sure, at next budget to update you on where we're at with that.
Okay, and if additional funds are needed then?
Yes, I would suggest if we want to future-proof this system and avoid an expense of considerable more magnitude, we do need to continue to invest in this, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Paquette?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's an interesting conversation. I think that I guess I would ask, do you think that, well, yeah, I can't ask you that one. I do have a very pertinent question. I'm not sure how to present it, so I'll just present it and then get corrected by the chair. Is it possible that we're having this conversation about the education tax has become a priority because we are so lean at this point that any small increase reflects on the tax rate, and a big part of this has to do with actual cuts and very difficult to absorb cuts that the province has engaged in when it comes to municipalities, and particularly Edmonton. Did I do it right? Good. 'Cause
I know it's a good question, but I don't know if it's a question related to this report, because
yeah,
this is
so I
more
guess
about setting the.
I guess then to rephrase it, have we calculated, do we have a list of all of the cuts that we've received and how that relates to and impacts the tax rate and our budget?
So we have done various iterations of that calculations through the budget process.
Yeah.
So I think you've been provided that information in all cases along your decision-making process to get to today, to the tax bylaws.
Sure. Do we have a singular list? Like basically a one document that shows all of that? Because otherwise it's sort of like scattered here and there throughout all of these various talks throughout the years.
A singular list of where the,
Of the
I
cuts
think
that
we
we've
have it,
received.
we've had it by capital and by operating. We've provided reports on capital reductions. We've
Okay.
provided you reports on
So-
GPOT.
I'll be a little more clear, and I apologize. Do we have a list that details every cut that we've received from the province that over the past term that details, okay, so for example, here's where they cut, fines, fine collection, or they've taken a bigger share. Here's where they've cut, by not providing for grants in place of taxes. Here's where they've cut as far as infrastructure transfers that used to be a norm in 2018, but changed in 2019, and so on and so on, line by line, down the board, one document, maybe even separate into operating and capital, and then had a total at the end. Have we done that?
Probably not. I could do that and circulate it by memo.
I think that would probably be helpful because, again, without these cuts, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation today. So if you have that information, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Acting Mayor Councillor Jans, can you take the chair?
Taken.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I'm looking at attachment 2, residential properties at the bottom column, provincial education tax. So let me start in the middle, municipal tax change. So 2025 municipal share of the taxes will be $3,550, right, per an average household. Am I reading that right?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm only just opening the attachment. Could you rephrase?
Attachment 2,
Yes.
the middle column that on the residential property says municipal tax change 2025, 3,550. That's the municipal share for 2025.
It's for a typical home,
For a
not an average.
Up for a typical,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
obvious, so got it. And then going down, that provincial education tax share for a typical home would be $1,170.
That is.
Got it, good. How do we remit this? When we collect all the revenue, tax revenue, how do we remit that to the province?
We actually receive a requisition bill from them, an invoice, 4 times a year, and we remit to them and to the separate school boards what they bill us, and then we collect and we keep that. So in essence, we're collecting the amount that we pay to the province.
So we remit every quarter or all once a year?
Every quarter,
Every quarter, so we send them a check.
we do. Yes.
So there's a physical check from City of Edmonton going to the government of Alberta or to the schools.
So it's like semantics, not always.
I know it's semantics.
It's not a check, but there is a transfer of cash
Yeah.
4 times a year.
Yeah.
For the public school component and the separate school component.
So my question is, when province transfers money to municipalities, they make announcements, they make, big things about supporting municipalities, right? In this case, we are collecting a revenue from a residents of Edmonton, a formal property tax that we remit to the province, and we make no note, we never make it public that this quarter we are sending this much money to the province. We the kind of maybe just why would we not educate Edmontonians on how Edmontonian households are supporting government of Alberta through property taxes?
So
Maybe-
we've never contemplated making quarterly announcements. We try to draw to the attention of municipal, of residential and non-residential taxpayers,
Yeah.
what the components of their bill are, provincial and
Yeah.
municipal.
Only on the tax notice, right? Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, maybe there are opportunities here to have a little bit more communication opportunities. Okay, that's all I need. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. I'll take the chair back. And so, Councillor Jans, you have a subsequent, right?
I do, yes, but I'm
Okay.
happy to move the
Go
recommendation.
ahead. First reading is
I'll
already
move-
on the floor.
thank you, of course.
Right? First reading is already on the floor, so we'll vote on the first reading. Okay, before we vote on the first reading, actually, anyone to speak? Oh, Councillor Paquette, no? Oh, wait for the subsequent, okay, got it, okay, please vote.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. We have all the votes.
That is carried. Councillor Jens, you want to move the second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Councillor Rutherford seconded it.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Just waiting on one vote. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried.
I'll move consideration of third reading.
Second.
Councillor Rutherford, please vote.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Just waiting for one vote. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried.
I'll move third reading.
Second.
Please vote for the final reading.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. All right, we have done 6.1. Now we are going to go to a subsequent motion on 6.1. Councillor Jans.
Thank you. I move that the mayor, on behalf of council, send an invoice to the government of Alberta for the entire education property tax collection costs.
And there's a second part?
That administration work with Alberta municipalities to bring forward advocacy for a plan to separate the provincial education tax collection from the municipal property taxes.
Councillor Nakusak, who said?
Yeah,
Okay,
second, sorry.
Got it, okay. All right, can you make the introduction, please?
Yeah, we frequently get told to stay in our lane, and I'm growing increasingly frustrated that we are, as municipalities, kind of the proverbial punching bag. We're being told that we have to spend an additional $5 million this municipal election on ballot counters, even though we have a great system. Yet when something that is as material as the taxes people pay, we are being saddled with the political burden here, and seeing that not only are those taxes going up in the education portion, but they're going up significantly. An additional $50 million collected from Edmontonians this budget is huge, especially when you consider a 1% property tax increase is about $20 million or so, as we estimate. So it's $50 million is a lot of money. This is being done by a provincial choice. We are wearing the political consequences of it, all of us. When this goes out, people don't care, no matter what font we put on the sheet. People just see the bottom number, and they're going to see a big property tax increase, and they're going to think it's our fault. And if the province can expect us to find $5 million to go towards ballot counters, surely they can find money to help us with the costs of paying for the collection. And I think in the long term, they can find the money to do it themselves, whether they mail it themselves or what, or we mail it out with Government of Alberta envelopes, with Government of Alberta sheets, and it's collected. The status quo cannot continue. We cannot be bearing this. And I think it's really important we stand in solidarity with Calgary. Calgary City Council already passed a motion to the effect of number 1 and has been musing about number 2. And I think we have to stand with them and help them here, because I'm sick and tired of going to the doors and having to explain to people that no, the provincial education tax does not go to City Hall, and it's not a decision that we made. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been introduced. Now questions on the subsequent. Yeah, Councillor Tang, you have a question? Go ahead. What is I have no idea what. Councillor Paquette, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Jans, for that introduction. I do have a few questions. So the first is, so the point 2 has a practical application and is a good conversation for Alberta municipalities to engage in. Point 1, I'm just wondering if that is, well, I'd just like to hear your insight on the need for point 1, the way it's presented.
So we've been advocating for the province to pay their grants in lieu of taxes. We've been advocating for the province to pay a number of things that are costs that we bear for them. I think it's the same thing here. If we get a number together, Calgary estimated $10 million, and that's collection, materials, everything else. If we get a number, even if it's $5 million, I think there's a point on principle, which is we should be raising here, that this is again the downloading of provincial obligations onto municipalities. So I don't know what the number is. I don't think admin has calculated it either, as we heard in the response. They're not sure how Calgary got to the $10 million number, but regardless, I think it's really important that Edmontonians know that we are staying in our lane and we are doing our part.
Okay, so do you feel that the province will pay that invoice?
Whether they do or don't, they need to explain why not. And Edmontonians deserve an answer why not.
Okay, so I would assume that their explanation will be that this is the way it works. You know, Edmontonians expect to fund education. This is one of the mechanisms we have. It's been a mechanism we've had in place for almost 100 years, I would assume. And, you know, this is common across Canada. So what other explanation would you want?
They might. I think it's important for Edmontonians to know that, because right now we are the ones doing the explaining on when we go and hear the education property taxes going up. Why did you do that to us, councillor? They are the ones who need to be explaining this, and they're the ones who need to be whether it's the grants in lieu of taxes, they have an explanation for that too. They say, well, municipalities don't pay tax to other municipalities. They have lots of explanations. They're happy to share them, but I think we have a duty to Edmontonians to advocate for their interests, and right now, we are taking punch after punch after punch, and like you, if I can mirror you, Councillor Paquette, you said you're sick and tired of it, and I am too.
Okay, and through the chair, and I am sick and tired of it, but through the chair, to the councillor, to the mover, so I'm going to assume, but I have to ask, that you're looking at point one as maybe a public relations sort of way to communicate to the public in as strong a way as possible. And that's why it would be sort of this invoice, even though it's fairly, I think we can assume, going to be ignored.
I wouldn't give up before the fight, and I'm looking for cash. If they gave us 10 million like they're giving to Calgary, that's a 0.5% property tax reduction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, clerk, you sent me a note. Councillor Principe voted incorrectly on third reading and would like to recall. Can we do that once we are through this, or should we do that now, or there's a time limit, I think, after the vote takes place?
Yes, an error in voting should happen right after the vote happens. So if we're going to deal with that, we should deal with it right away.
Okay. Would the process be just go?
But yes, there should be a point of order on the record, correct?
Point of order.
Okay, Councillor Principe, can you state your point of order, please, on the record?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your patience. I just didn't want to interrupt earlier. I did vote incorrectly on the last vote only, and I apologize. I thought I was voting on consideration at that time. So I would just like to ask to recall the last vote.
Okay. So we go back to that, right?
Yes, if that's your direction, is to recall the third reading vote, we can do that.
Okay. Somebody would have to, I can just recall.
You can recall the vote.
Revote,
if
a
there-
recall on third reading seems
If there
like
was an
okay, right? And let's revote on third reading,
Okay,
please. Or final, for final reading, yeah. Please vote.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Jans. I do know it's just coming through eScribe, so just give us half a moment. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. All right, that is carried. Okay. All right. I think Councillor Tang, you were on the list, right?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
thank you. I think I heard you say earlier that we've never tried to figure out how much sort of that education tax collection piece costs, because we kind of do it in one sum, and you will have to do the work to separate that out. So that part one will give you that opportunity to do that exercise. Correct?
We can just, as I'm thinking through how we would do that, it would be helpful to have a little bit more direction on what council means by the cost to administer. Because, like, frankly, the infrastructure is there. The requisition is already made. It honestly would be nominal. It is possible that we could look at our total costs for the assessment and taxation function and apportion that by the revenue collected, but that isn't correctly the administrative cost. In other words, we would incur that whether or not there was an education property tax.
And so just to be clear, you need a bit more direction sort of on the methodology?
Yes, I would like to understand better what council is looking for.
Yeah. I don't know if the mover has any context to add. I'm not opposed to this, partly because, I mean, I'm curious. If it's nominal, it's nominal. I think it's just good for information. But does the mover have anything to add?
I trust whatever our admin comes up with. If they want to take the total amount and say, you know, this is the mailing cost, this is this cost, and it's about a quarter, so therefore, you know, if the ed tax is this percentage, we want to do that, or if they want to do a different one. I think it's important that we're not trying to reboot a system from scratch and build something new, but I think it's really important for people to recognize this and to draw the line.
Yeah, I mean, I will caution about leaving the methodology up to the administration because they're clearly not clear on that, right?
How about this? I welcome the same methodology, whatever Calgary used, to come up with their number to show solidarity with Calgary City Council.
Does that make sense to you?
We can inquire as to what methodology Calgary used. What we've heard so far, though, is that it was a bit arbitrary.
Stacey, you want to?
I would say, like, some of your questions are straying into a place that I would rather we discussed in private,
Okay.
including any of our interactions with another city.
Okay. How much would it cost the city to do, no, sorry, not the city, the province to do it themselves?
We can't answer that.
Okay. I'll just say overall, I'm supportive of the intent, but I understand how that could be difficult. On the second piece, maybe to the mover, or actually maybe to administration, I don't know if we have intergov folks online? No? Okay, well, whoever can answer it. What does bringing forward advocacy plan look like? Because typically that would be a resolution at a convention. We've been doing this for 4 years. Will administration know?
I don't know that we know exactly what advocacy would look like at this point, but I would say that, like, we have an intergovernmental relations team that is well-versed in advocacy, so I think we would just need to take some time to truly understand the position for which you're advocating.
Yeah.
In order to craft that.
So to the mover, is that what you're thinking about? Because that would require, you know, like council members working with administration to develop the resolution, be able to present it, defend it at the convention, which is then presented to members province-wide.
Yes.
So maybe I'll propose a friendly amendment to, the administration work with Alberta municipalities to bring forward a resolution for the fall convention to separate the provincial education tax collection from municipal property taxes. Is that?
I'm open to that. I believe the convention happens after the election, though, so
Correct.
I'm not sure if we can prep for it for sure.
But if you don't
Yep.
prepare it, then there will
Yep.
be nothing. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Is that a friendly?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Cool, okay. All right, Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, I appreciate the intent of the mover. I'm a bit confused, similar to Councillor Paquette, with the intent and purpose of number 1. In that, like, at the AB Munis convention, and I heard the Premier specifically have an openness and a willingness to discuss this. And I don't see how one doesn't just shut those doors to the mover.
So the Premier had indicated that she was open to giving all of the education property tax back to Edmontonians, back to Albertans, like back to municipalities.
She specifically said at the AB Munis.
In her leadership race.
I'm talking about at AB Munis.
So in her leadership race, she had said she was looking at a plan to give the education property tax back to Edmontonians. That has not materialized.
But you're giving an invoice for the administrative costs. That's the first, I'm literally looking at your motion on the
Yep.
floor. It's not about giving yes, 9% is a lot. It'll add a lot to every individual household in Edmonton. I'm also mindful of just diplomacy and what's the best way to get the best outcomes for Edmontonians. And so at the Alberta Municipalities Convention that I was at, the Premier specifically stated that there was a willingness and an openness to look at the province taking on and collecting the education tax again. But I worry that number one would actually shut that door that is open a crack. So I'm trying to understand what is the actual gain you are trying to get, and do we get there a better way?
So what I'm trying to get across is the Premier has made a lot of commitments, including in her leadership race, that have not materialized. This government responds to advocacy when we make issues out in the public, when Edmontonians, not city councils, and Calgarians, not city councils, are out there saying this is not fair, that we're seeing increases in these taxes arbitrarily.
But the top one doesn't talk about the increase. The top one talks about which our administration is saying is nominal. Because at the end of the day, we would still have to administer the property tax regardless of whether we collect education property tax or not. So like, I feel like you're trying to, and there was something you said where you were like, it's, you want this before the election, which makes me think that this is like.
No, I was talking about the AB resolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I guess I'm just gonna move to strike one.
Okay. You're moving to strike one?
Yep.
Need a second by Councillor Hamilton?
Right.
Oh, Councillor Rice, okay, got it. Okay, we have,
Yeah, I'll introduce.
yeah, Councillor Rutherford, make the introduction, please. Can you make the
Yeah,
introduction?
I mean, I think I'm clear. For me, I understand the intent of the mover. I also think about, like I said, diplomacy and the best way to get there. I don't think any invoice, like even if it said something like the mayor write a letter on behalf to have a conversation about this, I would be for it. But as it stands with sending an invoice and a bill, that bill might be really nominal also, but second, I just don't see that as the way we go about getting the best outcome for Edmontonians. I think the best way to get outcomes for Edmontonians is to talk about the property tax increase with our residents, make them aware of that, and I think communication of the education portion is key. And I really am supportive of the part two, because I think that's an avenue in which we are strengthened members. And when all municipalities, including rural municipalities, are also advocating for the same thing, it's going to, in my opinion, be more effective and get us the results we want. So I understand what Calgary did. Calgary has a lot more, I'm going to say, social capital to do those kind of moves, because so many MLAs are UCP in that city. We do not have that same luxury, and I think that needs to be taken into context.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Now, questions on this, Councillor Paquette, on the amendment.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this for a bit, and I'm wondering if the entirety needs to be, I guess, okay, so the question is, would it be too much of a change if number one was revised to be sort of more like that we develop a clear values-driven public explanation campaign, but I guess that would be a completely different approach, yeah? Actually, this one's to administration, or to the clerks, actually.
Can you say that one more time? I
Yeah,
apologize.
absolutely. Sorry, I should have prefaced it that this was a question for you, because I know you're extremely busy all the time. So, number one, I thought instead of striking it, we could edit it to maybe more that council and the mayor engage in a clear values-driven public explanation campaign, but I think that's completely off the rails for the intent of point one.
Yeah, so because you've got a motion on the floor to strike, I would say you need to deal with that, and then further amendments could be proposed. And I will look to those sitting behind us as to whether they want to give you some advice on if you should move in private for any of these questions.
Okay, thank you. And then to the mover, the reason you want to strike this, like, the bare bones of it is that you don't think it would be an effective approach because it's performative, confrontational, or otherwise basically has no hope of actually being fulfilled.
Absolutely, and in addition to that, it's going to, we've talked about the amount of work we've been putting on our admin staff. We have the infrastructure committee, we have all of these other things, the results-based budgeting. I'm mindful of, will the work and effort of our administration bear the fruit that we would want it to bear? And I don't think it does with this one.
Okay. Right, so and the point is that to put the information together for the invoice is added work for administration for something that would yield no practical fruit, but to be fair, it would yield some public awareness. So
Only if that number is high, which the administration is also saying would likely not be the case. So I feel like, again, the reason I moved to strike this was, and I think that the clerk got it right. I think if you want to do a public awareness campaign amendment when we come back after we deal with the motion on the floor, I absolutely support that. But I just, have been very clear that this has proven time and time again not to be an effective way of actually getting the outcomes we want to see for Edmontonians. And that's kind of that's the intent.
okay, so I'm inferring from what you said that because we've written so many letters that have fallen on deaf ears, that it sort of undermines the authority of council to write another one that is going to be ignored.
Yeah, well, and this isn't a letter, this is an invoice, so it's even more inflammatory.
Yeah, okay.
Second of all, I think it's what I said even with the advocacy campaign around the grants in lieu. I said the province is going to give us they're absolutely going to balk to the pressure of that, and then they're going to take it away in some other capacity, and they did that. They did that with the education tax. This is what I said they would do.
So even if they say, okay, fine, there you go, Edmonton, there will be just another
There will be
added
some
cost
other,
to the city
there'll be,
to make
if
up
there's a
for it.
push, there's going to be a pull.
Okay, I get it. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Sorry, Councillor Wright. Sorry.
That's
On
fine.
the amendment?
Yes, because I do agree in part with the amendment, and we should be looking more towards advocacy, but I'm just wondering if maybe we should move into private then to get some advice from administration, if Jeremy doesn't mind too much. Can I move that we go into private subject to section, 17?
21.
21, thank you.
Second.
Okay, so just hold on, Councillor Wright, you have questions on part 1 or part 2 as well in camera?
Just part 1, I think, yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, please vote.
Councillor Stevenson is yes.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Just waiting for one vote. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried.
I voted in solidarity with Jeremy.
We are live, but let's just give a minute for the doors to be opened upstairs.
Okay, we are back in public. And we have the amendment on the floor to strike down part 1. Okay, any further questions on that? If not, can we vote on striking part 1? Anyone to speak to striking part 1? Okay, please vote on striking down part 1.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. Now, can you put back part 2, please?
Yes, we will put that on the screen.
Okay, part 2. All right. Okay. Questions on part 2? All right. Part 2 to speak. Councillor Paquette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I want to start out by saying I absolutely appreciate the councillor bringing this motion forward. This is a conversation that needs to happen. That being said, I'm not sure where I'm going to vote on this. When Edmontonians pay their property taxes, a big chunk, almost a third, goes straight to the province. It's called the education tax, but it doesn't actually go directly to schools. It goes into the province's general revenue. We collect it, but we have no control over it. And when it increases, it's our name on the bill. And it's a convention that we don't dispute, but folks should be aware of it. And that's just one piece. The province gives with one hand quite often and takes more with the other. One-time grants and flashy announcements might look good in a press release, but behind the scenes, the downloads and clawbacks keep piling up. It all adds up, and it adds pressure to our already stretched budget. And let's be blunt, we've responded. Edmonton is running leaner and more efficiently than ever. We're doing more with less. In fact, we're operating with nearly $1 billion less per year than Calgary, give or take, depending on how you do the calculations, but that's pretty darn close. That's not a minor difference. That's the result of tough decisions and hard work to protect services while keeping costs down. That's an annual savings to Edmontonians of $1 billion per year on a $3.75 billion operating budget. This was self-directed by council. So when the province layers their own cuts on Edmontonians, it becomes punishing. And we're hitting the limit. But the public does not really know this situation. So here's what we need: a clear, cumulative list of every cut, download, and cost shift that's been passed to this city by the province over the past several years. We need to show Edmontonians the real impact, not just on paper, but on their lives. Because this isn't just about budget lines. It's about service levels, infrastructure delays, public safety, and overall quality of life. If we don't lay it out clearly, people will keep wondering why things feel harder, why taxes are up, but services feel stretched. We owe them the truth, and we owe them the tools to see who's really making the decisions on many of these issues and why it hurts. Because if we don't speak up, it's a pretty certain bet that no one else will. And we have individually, I think, been talking about this, but I don't think that as an organization, there has been clear communication to the people of Edmonton about what these impacts mean. And if we are not being clear, and if we are not telling that story, then someone will tell a different story about this city, and that is actually exactly what we're seeing. Because it's an easy, lazy narrative. Oh, look at all the waste at the city. Oh, they're spending on this and that and the other. I defy any other government in this country to show that they are more open with their budget than the city of Edmonton. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Councillor Knack.
Thanks, Mayor Sohi, and thanks for this motion. So I think this motion to do a resolution with for the Alberta Municipalities Convention makes a ton of sense. When we travel the province, over and over again, we hear from municipal leaders in villages, towns, cities, you name it, and they have the same concern that I think we've raised over and over again about this sort of being captured in the property tax equation. And you know, there's lots of reasons why this happened over the years, and I think the bigger piece, though, is now that this goes into general revenue, in terms of a true fairness and transparency expectation, what would make sense is for the provincial government to increase their income taxes by the associated amount, and then ensure that this isn't being collected by the municipalities. It's a great way for them to not show the full cost of the services they're providing. So really, to me, it's a simple thing that, you know, they already collect income taxes. The income taxes should reflect the full cost of their budget, and that should not be included on the municipal property tax notice, because at least in Edmonton, I think the number was about 25% of our property tax, of the total property tax bill, doesn't actually go to the city. So that should be collected by the province using their existing property or income tax collection tools. We should be able to show just what is being collected for all of the municipal services. So I actually think this is a very good resolution. I think it's something that municipalities across this province already support and have been asking for many different ways, because again, at the end of the day, when the notice comes out, no matter how much folks up there will cover this, most people aren't going to go and read the details of their property tax notice. They're going to see the final number, and then that's what they're going to talk to us about. That final number should reflect only what is required to provide municipal services day in and day out. That's just being transparent and fair. That makes a ton of sense. And I think with the provincial government changing this so it goes in general revenue, I think it makes sense for them to do that as well. So it's a very reasonable ask. Obviously, this still needs to go through a process of going to a future convention and then the municipalities voting on it, but I would expect this would get strong support across the province, and hopefully that would then be a very clear message to the provincial government to start collecting that through their existing tax mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Councillor Tang.
Yeah, thanks for the debate and discussion on this piece. Maybe just like maybe a bit of thought as the other representative on Alberta municipalities, and having gone through a few different resolution process on this, I don't disagree with a lot of what Councillor Knack had talked about in terms of there are these other mechanisms. But I think my preference would have been to withdraw this and to table it at a later time when it's more relevant and there's more conversation from the mover with the intergovernmental team, with Alberta municipalities representative and potentially staff to understand what are some of the existing, maybe not the same, but relevant resolutions that are in the works, and to position this more strategically. I think there is something here worth advocating for provincially that will affect all municipalities, but I'm not sure that this is the most well thought out approach. Because I agree with Councillor Paquette. I think while this may feel very innocuous, and maybe, as we heard earlier from administration, that even if we separate this out, the cost could be nominal. I think there's other risk that comes with it that would be too high for me to support this at this time. So for some of those reasons, I would not be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Jans is the mover. Councillor Stevenson is in a separate meeting. Who is next?
Councillor Jans is your acting mayor.
And after Councillor Jans?
So then it would be Councillor Cartmell.
Councillor Cartmell, can you take the chair, please?
I have the chair.
Thank you. There's a lot of confusion about property taxes out there. And I heard a lot during last 6 weeks, going door to door. And when people see their tax bill, they look at the total number. So in 2025, a typical single detached home would see a total tax levy of $4,720. That's the number people look at. They don't look at how much of that is going to the city and how much of that is going to the province. As Councillor Knack mentioned, almost 25% of that goes to the province. There's a huge lack of transparency in this. And the principle should be that government responsible for taxing people should be sending them the bill to collect that tax, not another order of government. But here, we are required to collect taxes on behalf of the province that directly go to the province, but City Council gets the blame for that tax, particularly at a time when people are struggling with their affordability crisis. And property taxes do add to the affordability challenges. Yes, people get a lot of good services like police, fire, public transit, community services, libraries, a lot of services. 80% of the services that people consume on a daily basis are delivered with that $3,550 that we collect to run a municipality. But people don't make that distinction that 1/4 goes to the province. I think it's important to have that principle stated, and this motion allows us to do that, that we should municipality should collect our own taxes, and province should be collecting their own taxes. That's how people can hold each order of government accountable. They can hold us accountable for our expenditures, then they hold province accountable for their expenditures. I also want to highlight that earlier on, Premier Smith, when she was seeking the leadership of the UCP, made a commitment that she would look at leaving all municipal taxes, including education tax, with municipalities in lieu of the grant funding that they receive, that municipalities receive from the province. Premier has reneged on that commitment because grants we receive are far less than the amount that we collect on their behalf for education. I think it is important to continue to remind Edmontonians about the promises that were made. On top of that, as Councillor Paquette has mentioned, the MSI funding has reduced to 1/3 of what was promised in 2008. We are still owed $90 million in taxes that province has not paid on their properties since 2019. I'm happy that they're going to do that moving forward, but Edmontonians still had to make up for that $90 million. We're still maintaining provincial highways in our city, costing us $18 million every year that Calgary doesn't have to pay. Right? So there's a lot of ways that province has downloaded onto us, and those things are itemized. It's not, those things are not there. We've been itemizing those things, and there are other things that we have itemized. But we got to continue to reiterate them, continue to repeat them, so that people understand that if they're feeling the pinch on property taxes, it is not all municipalities doing. It's the province has contributed significantly those higher taxes and added to the affordability challenges that Edmontonians are facing. So I'm going to be supporting this. With that, I'm going to go to Councillor Jans to close.
Thank you. I was explaining this to a constituent, and they said, this sounds a lot like the American Revolution, taxation without representation. And I said, yep, yeah, it kind of does. And they asked about the property tax checkbox, where on your property tax you can say to send it to the public or the separate system. Again, that is meaningless. It has no bearing if you check separate. It does not go to Edmonton Catholic Schools. It does not go to Edmonton Public Schools. It does not go to Star Catholic. It doesn't matter. It's part of, it goes into provincial general revenue. For me, this is part of a bigger principle around this idea of municipal self-determination. I guess I would ask all of you, do you believe there's a role for municipal councils? Yes or no? Do you believe we should have a mayor and council, or should we have a provincially appointed deputy minister and 12 assistant deputy ministers? Do we believe in working with the province, or do we believe in working for the province? Do we believe in the principle of local democracy and subsidiarity, the idea that decisions made should be made closest to those who are directly affected by them? Again, as others have said, this is big money. This is $575 million a year in education property tax collected. We hear from many partners about concerns over taxes, but has the Chamber of Commerce issued any correspondence about the concern on this education property tax piece? How about the Downtown Recovery Coalition? How about some of the other business interests who have written to us concerned about property taxes? This $50 million is equivalent to a 2% property tax increase, and I hope that we would hear this, have the same animated concern from those groups against the provincial government as we have received in correspondence here in the Chamber. Ultimately, I believe local voices should have a priority in the say and designs of our communities, and that we shouldn't be subject to the whims of cabinet ministers from other places who may have different agendas. I believe that we should be in charge of our speed limits, our potholes, our all of those things that are in our care, traffic lights, crosswalks, etc., and that we shouldn't be taking undue responsibility for things that are not our responsibility. In closing, I've been reading this great book called On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder, an American author, and he talks about this concept of preemptive surrender. It refers to the anticipatory obedience or a willingness to compromise your values and principles in advance of a threat, thus enabling authoritarianism to take root. It is a dangerous phenomenon where citizens, in an effort to avoid political consequences, proactively adapt to a new regime's demands, inadvertently empowering it. Now, I think this is a concern here where we as councils don't take the opportunity to speak up and defend the interests of Edmontonians. If a future provincial government says, yep, this is what they want to do, they want to move towards the abolition of municipal councils, so be it. But as it stands, I for one believe that Edmontonians appreciate local representation and will continue to fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jans. Please vote.
Just waiting on one vote. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. All right. Those were the bylaws. But we move on to adjournment. I want to welcome some visitors who are joining us. Students from grade 6 class. Their school is Holy Family Catholic School, and your ward is Ward Spamitapi. Councillor Wright is our ward councillor right over there. Nice to see you all. Are you having fun at City Hall? Doesn't look like you're having fun. Are you having fun at City Hall? Okay, so the way I ask, so I'm not having fun at City Hall today, definitely not. Just kidding. Have you have you done your mock council? Are you going to be doing your mock council today? Have you selected your mayor? Okay, who's the mayor? Mayor, your worship, you want to come down to the podium? Come down. Walk slowly, though. Can you tell us your name first?
Hello, my name is Joanna.
Joanna, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Can you tell us what are you going to be talking about at your mock council?
We're going to be talking about like the issue of should public transit be free for ages K to 12.
K to 12. Constant, you're going to make constant depending on the outcome, right? What do you decide? Okay, so that's. I think we had a couple of discussions on that topic. So maybe you can do some research before you do your council meeting. How we discussed that and decision that we made related to that. So do let us know once you have decided what your vote was and your decision was. Let us know. Nice to see you.
Nice to see
Well
you.
done. Cool. All right. Reports to be dealt with at a different meeting, none. Request to reschedule reports, none. Public reports, none. Bylaws we have already dealt with. Private reports, none. Motions pending. Any motions pending? I don't see any. Notice of motions or motions without customary notice. Is there any? There are some motions without customary notice. I don't see any. We are adjourned at 11:09.